So what are some of the common myths and what are the latest trends in credentialing? As I said at the very start of this, it's really a bit of an introduction in terms of digital credentials and to try and dispel some of the many questions that we get on our calls with different clients and throughout the process. I think there's many that exist in terms of blockchain, and there's many in terms of what digital credentials are and what they look like. So I'm hopefully going to dispel some of those myths today. And then after we've done that, we'll go through and do the Q&A if there's any questions. So what's the first one? Digital credentials, the same as traditional diplomas and certificates. Well, in one side, yes, but in truth, as I've already said, you're restricted by the size of that piece of paper, by that certificate. Yeah, there's only so much data that you can put on them. So there's a big difference in terms of what a traditional diploma looks like, what a traditional certificate looks like, and what a digital credential looks like. And maybe just to cover a point, diplomas, certificates, badges are all credentials, as are a whole other set of documents that exist that apply to either an individual or an organization. They're also much more flexible in terms of the range of skills and achievements and information that can be added to them. As I said, I'll go into it in terms of the public issuer key, but the transparency in terms of the issuer. Yeah? The ability to revoke certificates, the ability to add time-bound expiry on certificates, all things that aren't possible when it comes to those traditional diplomas and certificates, not to mention, as I've already covered, in terms of making them so they counterfeit can't happen. Again, diplomas and certificates typically represent completion of a specific program or course, whereas digital credentials aren't bound by that. What's the second myth or question that we often get? Are they as valuable as that traditional credential? People say, well, listen, I'd like to print it. I want to put it on my wall. I want to show off my credential. Well, that's great, but you can only show off your credential that's been put on a wall to everyone who actually comes in to see that picture. When it comes to a digital credential, it can be shared with the whole world. It can be shared with your whole network, whether that's on LinkedIn, on Facebook. You can share it on email. So in terms of the value that gives both to the recipient of it, to the issuer of it, it's a magnitude of 10 at a minimum in terms of what that has. Not to mention it can be instantly verified online. And I think that key point, last one, in terms of the transparency and the issuer, is absolutely key. That is a unique issuer key and can only be used by that particular issuer. What's the third one? Digital credentials are easy to fake. This is a big topic in its own right. And again, another question that we get many times. What's the difference between a digital credential anchored on blockchain and a PDF? Well, listen, you can go online, you can create a PDF, you can even hack a PDF, and it only takes a matter of minutes. And you need to search one or two terms in Google and it will give you the answer to that. So not all digital credentials are the same, but no, digital credentials anchored on blockchain aren't easy to fake. And as I've touched on before, the public issuer key is a unique key. It forms part and parcel of a smart contract that's anchored on blockchain, and it really makes that credential immutable. So it can't be changed. There's no way. We often get the question that comes up, I've issued a credential. Can I change it? Can I edit it? The answer is no. It's plain and simple. So you can revoke that certificate, you can revoke that credential, but you can't edit it. Yeah. You can also have an expiry date on it as well. So if you think of a traditional certificate that may have an expiry date, you're actually opening yourself up. The only thing you need to change really in that certificate would be the expiry date. And if someone doesn't go through the verification process, they'll be treated as a valid certificate. So you can automate and digitize and use the technology that's built into a credential platform, use the technology that's built into blockchain to really support and ensure that all the digital credentials issued that are anchored on blockchain, they are immutable. What's the fourth myth? So digital credentials are only useful for technical or vocational skills. It probably couldn't be more further from the truth. They can be used to represent a whole range of skills and achievements, both technical or non-technical, academic, proficiency, events, teamwork, leadership. And I think the most powerful point beyond that is that there's so many different use cases for digital credentials beyond that of an individual. There's use cases that exist from a supply chain perspective. We have organizations who are working with us right now who use it to provide verification of authenticity of product statuses in terms of food. We have clients in the testing, inspection, and certification industry. We're working with healthcare organizations, and not to mention, as I touched on before, in terms of international mobility, whether that's healthcare professionals, logistics, and IT, to ensure that the workforce, all of their credentials can be verified and are all anchored on blockchain to present that in a wallet or a skill pass, a profile of that individual. We also work with clients from an environmental perspective, issuing certificates to support carbon credits, all of which can be verified with one click through scanning a QR code or sharing that unique link. So there's much more useful cases for digital credentials beyond technical and vocational skills. Fifth and final one is digital credentials are only relevant for younger generations. Yeah, I guess I'm one of those people who the internet came in my lifetime, but that doesn't mean they're not relevant. Whether you're old or young, whether you're an organization or an individual, they certainly play a key role in the workplace and within organizations. They can also be particularly useful for individuals who are looking to change careers. And quite often it comes up with a recognition of prior learning. How can I showcase my skills, such as non-traditional means, on-the-job training and self-directed learning? And recognition of prior learning is one way in which that can be done, and a digital credential being issued with those various skills and competencies as part and parcel of that credential. So if you're looking for a career change, if you're looking to start your career, digital credentials are relevant for all generations. So last slide before I go to the Q&A. I see we've got one question. What are the key takeaways of this? I think easy issuance. It's very simple and straightforward to start issuing your credentials. From a CredSure perspective, we help you in terms of creating an on-brand badge, certificate, with all the details you require. As I said, it can be multi-language in terms of the issuance email and in terms of the certificate itself. So it's a very easy process, and it's a one-click process when it comes to anchoring that on blockchain. Second one is in terms of the impact on the job market and the way in which it's changing that process. So you can reduce that time to hire through instant verification of credentials. And as I said, it's not just applying to a certificate or a badge, it's the end-to-end life cycle of that individual. And we've got use cases of organizations using it for their existing employers to understand the skill set they have in the organization. It's being used from a sourcing and recruitment perspective. And as I mentioned, for a whole range of use cases. And the final one, hopefully, that you've got as a takeaway is all the different myths that we've been through. Digital credentials are not just for individuals, they're also for organizations. And there's so many benefits in terms of the rich data set that can be added as part and parcel of that credential. And this is really just the beginning of that journey, not just in terms of digital credentials and blockchain, but all the different use cases and ways in which that can impact industry, employers, recruiters, and candidates on that journey. So thank you very much. Excuse me. Thank you very much for your time. Please feel free to add any questions in the Q&A section, and I'll be happy to answer them. So I think we've got one question. Can you explain how individuals or organizers get started with implementing digital credentials? Certainly. All of you, feel free, you can contact myself at mikedwild@certifyd.com. We'll also be sending a follow-up email with contact details if you'd like to arrange a demonstration of the platform. I'd be happy to take you through that, understand what your objectives are as a business, and really understand how we can help you. We have organizations who've onboarded with our customer success team in as little as, I think a day is actually the record, but usually it's typically 3 to 5 days. But yeah, more than happy to help you and explain the different benefits of digital credentials, how you can get started, and then crucially how you can scale that and it can become a major part and parcel of your organization. Any other questions? Wonderful. Well, the last slide I'd like to give you is really just to say this is the first of our Redefining the Future of Credentials series that we'll be running. We will keep you informed. As I mentioned, we'll be covering more in terms of how digital credentials can be used in terms of recruitment, in terms of international mobility. We'll also be doing a webinar in terms of the value of social sharing, the value, the impact that has from a lead generation perspective, from revenue generation to your organization. There's a whole range of topics that we'll be covering throughout 2023 that we're certainly excited about sharing those examples with you. We're excited about working with many of you and looking forward to continuing our journey throughout 2023. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining, everyone. As I said, there'll be a follow-up email with all the contact details. You will also all receive a badge, which will be anchored on blockchain, issued by CredSure as a thank you for joining the webinar today, and looking forward to seeing and hearing from you all soon. Thanks very much. Bye.